baseball free agency with what the Cardinals are looking for, which is, we know, a catcher, whether that's free agency or trade. And I'm sure there's some other parts here and there, potentially an outfielder. They're kind of sniffing around, maybe starting pitching market, bullpen. But like what you've seen with baseball the last couple weeks, usually these markets respond to a deal that's made that then says, okay, for example, first base. That's a market that's really moved. Rizzo kind of came early there and said, all right, 2-year deal, $20 million a year with an option. So anybody that wants a first baseman now, Rizzo is no longer an option. Carlos Santana gets a smaller deal. All of a sudden, Jose Abreu gets a nice 3-year deal. So it's like the market hasn't moved yet for catchers. And all of a sudden when somebody gets traded, one of these big guys, or Wilson Contreras gets signed, all of a sudden, okay, now one of the guys we wanted is gone. So like for baseball so far, the first base market has moved and everybody has responded. Kind of the big-time reliever market has moved. It started with Edwin Diaz. You got some of these other relievers, Rafael Montero, folks like that. So, like, if a catcher moves, all of a sudden, I bet you see other teams start to respond. If everybody wants Murphy or if everybody wants Contreras, and all of a sudden that guy goes to the Cardinals or that guy goes to the Houston Astros, by the way, we're probably going to have to outbid the Astros for Wilson Contreras. And when you see them give an older player like Jose Abreu a 3-year deal, maybe now Contreras gets a 5-year deal in this market, and maybe the Cardinals don't love that.
Yeah, I get you on that.
Let me throw a name out there. Jesse Winker. What do you think of him, Charlie?
I know he was bad last year. I like him in theory, but if you're gonna give me Cody Bellinger, I like Cody Bellinger's upside much more than Jesse Winker, understanding, though, that Cody Bellinger is going to cost a lot more. But I think if you figure out Cody Bellinger and you put him with his old hitting coach and he finds it, I think you have a really, really good player potentially.
I think Sharon wants that.
My Bellinger thing, and maybe I'm wrong. Like, I think there's red flags because it's not just his swing got out of whack. It got out of whack because he tore his shoulder up. And he had a weird swing to begin with, like a very unique swing. I don't know if he'll get back to it, not based on a guy suddenly losing it like we've seen with DeYoung or in the past Matt Carpenter. There's a reason. I don't know. And Winker's numbers, look, I'm not saying he's the end-all, be-all, but he's a lefty bat that can play outfield and is going to be okay out there. Or if it's a guy like that, my point is I want a big meat eater. I'm not talking about if it's a Winker, maybe you are better off just waiting and seeing what you get from Nootbaar. We talked to Nootbaar yesterday. Nootbaar had a disastrous first half last year. I mean, he's hitting 100 2 months into the season. And he finishes, with one of the top OPSs in the second half in all of baseball, a lot of walks, and plus had pop at 14, 15 homers last year. Maybe you're better off seeing what you have with the guys that are there. Give me what you have.
Give me what you have.
Give me what you have.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't look at outfield as a huge problem. If they add a Winker or a Bellinger, that's fine. You have about 7 guys. You have 7 guys to figure out the outfield and a DH spot, and it takes 3 or 4 of them to produce. To me, catcher, look, I know he's coming on. We love kids.
Kids dog.
We'll see what happens with Ivan Herrera. Look, as great as Yadi has been throughout his career, and he's a Hall of Famer, when you look at the lack of offensive production the Cardinals got from the catching position the last 2 years, that is a spot you can really, really upgrade.
Yeah.
I'm talking to go from one of the worst offensive positions in the National League for a team to, if you get a Contreras or a Murphy potentially, all of a sudden that's a strength, which was a big weakness the last 2 seasons.
I like Murphy. I don't know if you want to get in it depends who's in the market for Contreras. I don't want to overpay for that guy defensively. He's got a good arm, but otherwise defensively he's not great. To me, that's the bottom of the order anyway. Yeah, you're going to upgrade over that. I'll say it again. You are going to be without Albert Pujols, who was the most dominant offensive player in the second half by many of the metrics, probably most of the metrics. And he's gone. And in the second half, the offense had stops and starts too. So to me, replacing that is a priority. And I agree. We have a lot of options out there. But like I said before, there's too many ifs. And if the ifs don't work out, and I think some will, you're going to end up with a bottom half of your order where there's guys 211, 216. Same thing we saw last year. So to me, the top priority, I could live with
Monster.
with the catchers playing a little defense, chipping in offensively, if we had a big bat to put back in the middle of the lineup to replace Pujols.
Bomber. Big bat, baby.
I just don't see that happening. I think another issue is the Cardinals, they have so much right-handed pop. And if they get a Contreras, right-handed, who's coming up soon, we think? Jordan Walker, right-handed. I mean, it would be really nice if a switch hitter like Dylan Carlson could really figure it out.
Yeah, that would be nice. Somebody chimed in, Jackie Boy's like, if the Cardinals aren't moving from DeYoung, they sure as hell aren't going to move from Nootbaar.
Well, I think I don't think they're moving on from DeYoung. What does that
Jack.
mean? He's not going to start next year unless he hits 1,000 in spring training. Like, I think we've seen them move on from DeYoung as best they can. He's still under contract. It's almost to the point now with what value is left is to see what he can do in spring training and wait and see if he can find it again.
That's why I find that funny, and I get a lot of comments about that, don't get me wrong, on YouTube especially. But it's like, we all admit the Cardinals, they made a bad deal on Paul DeYoung. Now, he showed signs early of deserving that deal to buy out all of those arbitration years. But guess what? It didn't work out. Like, we can all be adults. We can all admit that. But you now have a guy who was making, what was he making last year? $6 million, whatever it is this year, $9 million plus a buyout. He's making a lot of money. He has no value relative to the money he's making. So do you want to just dump him? Okay. But if you're the Cardinals, you already signed the deal. You already have to pay out the money. If he can contribute as a backup infielder, I understand that looks really bad, but you have no other options.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to trade him, you're going to trade him as a piece to a deal with no value. You're going to have to eat almost all of that salary.
Yep.
So it is what it is. It's not a good situation, but if Paul DeYoung can actually be a capable backup middle infielder for the Cardinals, that's fine. If he's worth a roster spot, he's never going to be worth $9 to $11 million. Everybody here agrees with that, but you can't change that now.
Yeah. It's already signed, sealed, and delivered.
You know, and it's easy to bash that signing. I kind of thought it was the right move because I didn't see this coming, what happened to him offensively. But yeah, he's a streaky guy. Home runs would come in bunches, no question about it. But a pretty solid defensive shortstop with some power, and you kind of got the feeling that maybe better years were even coming for DeYoung. I didn't kill that signing, but in retrospect, it was a huge mistake. But looking at the lefty bats, like you talk, I agree. Like they're too right-handed heavy. Newt, lefty bat, what can he be? I mean, 228, 14 homers last year after an awful, awful first half. Maybe he's a guy, Burleson, who we saw briefly, hit 188 with the big club, but hit like 330-something with power in the minor leagues. I mean, they have options out there with a lefty bat. Are they better than going out and find? It ain't easy. I was looking through left. That's why you look at a guy like Winker, because there's not a ton of guys that you might have a shot at getting that are lefty bats.
That's exactly what I meant, Charlie. Dump him and free a roster spot, Jackie.
They will. I guarantee you. They will at this point. He has 1 year left.
Yeah.
If he's not worth being a backup infielder, they will dump him. And maybe they do anyway. They just feel like they need to move on from him and clear a spot. But at this point, I think some people are looking at it like, oh, they're justifying the salary. Well, maybe for a couple years you give that guy a shot. At this point, it's the final year. It doesn't matter. But if you're going to have to pay out the salary anyway and you can get anything out of him, you may as well.
You're probably not. So, I mean, I'm just saying, it might be a better value play to give him a couple weeks at spring training and see how he
what
looks.
he does. You never know.
Right? I mean, you're not going to get much for him.
Yeah. No, you're not.
Oh, in trade, you're not going to get anything.
Yeah.
I don't think John Mozeliak's going to trick anybody.
No.
Hey,
I
he's
swear.
going to call up somebody
doing
on the
better.
phone. Listen, man, I saw this guy in the cage.
Yeah.
I saw this guy in the cage in November and early December.
Crushing it.
This guy's raking off the jugs machine.
Yeah.
I think you should trade us your top left-handed bat.
He's seen a therapist and everything. I'm telling you, his mind's right.
I don't think
He
that's
went to
going to
South
happen.
America and got ayahuasca.
So, and then a lot of people, too, like, what does Gersh do? Right? Like, you know, like, so this has been my experience with how the Cardinals operate. So they have a room of stat guys, the metrics guys, right? The saber guys. They're all in there. And they come up with players, things that the Cardinals need to do better, and players who could fill that spot for them, right? And then they take the information and they give it to the baseball ops guys, like Gersh and his staff, and they go through it. And then those guys reach out to other GMs, assistant GMs, whoever it may be, and start saying, hey, what about this guy? Hey, we're looking, maybe we work something out. And then it starts talking and phone calls and texts and things like that. That's how it works. There's a lot of people. It's not Mo, sitting there with an old Sporting News going, maybe we should investigate this guy. There's a whole process. And also, if it's a big ticket deal, DeWitt is involved.
Yeah.
The big guy.
Yep.
And he knows baseball. That's the other thing. They have an owner who knows baseball, unlike others. He could tell you something about pretty much every player in his minor league system. And so he weighs in. There's a process.
I remember going into the office, and you'd always see, Lou had 2 offices, and every section of the office, he'd have every single team with every single player ranked on their roster, and then all the top minor league players all ranked, and he just has that in his eyesight everywhere he looks, always making calls, looking at this guy, switching out this, doing that. It's the craziest thing. It's like a big jigsaw puzzle, and you always know where you're at because you can look at the Devils and be like, and you see where you're ranked because you're just ranked every single day. It's crazy.
The other thing is, all those metrics guys, they're also looking at a set of stats which we all can access. But a lot of baseball fans, and us included, will sometimes talk about baseball card stats and this and that, and here's this guy's batting average and RBI, and that's not what these folks are looking at all. They're looking at their expected on-base percentage and their barrel percentage, and they're trying to figure out guys whose behind-the-scenes stats were actually better than their production, their outcome. They're trying to find guys, look, that guy, he hit 230, but he actually had terrible luck. And look at that guy. You know what? Look at what he did hitting into the shift. With new rules, we actually think he's going to be 27% better when they go back to the old defensive rules. The shift's not going to kill him. That's what they're looking at.
And they also
they're crunching it.
Have their own algorithms where they punch in all their information. And this is the proprietary stuff that each team has on their own, where they put a dollar value on every player, like a dollar value. So it works for free agent. Look, this guy isn't worth that kind of money. Or what he's worth in terms of trade pieces. It's not just guys who we think, because there's certainly part of that. The Cardinals, they mine information to find guys with good spin rates who have underachieved, with on their field performance compared to what they think he can be. But they also put a dollar value on each guy.
They crunch it, man.
Yeah.
The best move with DeYoung is to find a salary dump from another team and swap them in hopes that the change of scenery will do wonders for both players involved. Not sure who that guy is, but I'd rather take my chances on another underperformer than DeYoung.
And here's another part of the current market. I'm trying to find this. But I was looking up on this Spot Track, which does a good job of predicting what guys are going to get. They're not always right, but I believe their prediction for Jose Abreu was about $13 million a year. Now, they were pretty close to Anthony Rizzo's deal. They predicted a 3-year deal for $63 million. Rizzo got 2 years and an option, but he did get $20 million per year. So they were pretty close there. But they were very wrong on Abreu. They predicted about a $12, $13 million deal. He got 20.
Oh, yeah.
And he's about to be 36 years old.
Oh.
So you also just wonder if this market's going to be a little crazier than in past years. And when the market gets crazy, the Cardinals usually don't get crazy with the market.
Right.
If the market gets crazy, they just say, all right, we're going to kind of step back.
Yeah, and evaluate this thing. No, and I get that, too.
And if they think it's a major need, that's how, what's the lefty bullpen guy who was terrible? Why am I blanking on his name? Brett Cecil.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Milk bag
Oh,
body.
I thought he was fine.
So
Canadian boy, isn't he?
But if you think about it, right, they had money that year. They knew they needed a legitimate lefty out of the pen, so they overpaid for him, knowingly overpaid, just to get it done and not get caught up in any kind of bidding war. So when they see a need and they know that there's going to be a lot of teams in on the guy, they'll try to go in early and get it done. So we don't see that yet with the catcher market with Contreras because I don't think anyone knows where it's going to develop. And I don't know how any website can figure out what a guy's going to get when you don't really know what the market is.
Yeah.
Like you don't know who's bidding on it.
But you know based on past years. Like they're predicting the shortstop market. You can look at what Corey Seager got last year, Marcus Semien, and Carlos Correa on a short deal, and you can pretty accurately at least predict about what Trey Turner is going to get for his age.
Unless there's someone who's going to push it. You know, there's two teams that want him bad and push it beyond where people thought it was going to go. That's why I think it's difficult to do that.
Right, but they're not going to be off by $8 million a year for a 10-year deal. I mean, I think Corey Seager kind of set that market last year. He got 10 years, $325 million. So could Trey Turner get more average annual value? Sure. I don't think
slide Trey Turner.
I don't think Trey Turner gets more than 10 years, but he might get an 8-year deal for a higher AAV than $32.5 million.
Damn.
You know what I panic when I think about the Cardinals? I panic in that, you know, you're not on the clock yet, but you got Goldie, you got Arenado.
You need something.
You know, like
I know.
Let's make
advantage of
the
it.
most of this.
I agree with that.
And I do think their starting rotation can be good. A lot of people, you got to go get an ace. I'm fine with what they have. If they want to get a bullpen piece, I'm good with that too. Catcher, yes, but another bat.
I get you. The monster.
And yesterday we did something on Bally's with Newt. He was working out at Arenado's place in California.
California.
Kind of cool to see that stuff.
Yeah.